The Spurs were seconds away from bringing another title back out west. While the Thunder, I have to start, were last year's favorite, they lost a key piece in Russell Westbrook, but he'll be back this season, putting them back on the map. And over in Houston, Dwight Howard signed with the Rockets, and they're on the hunt as well. And you know Doc Rivers, he'll try to lead the Clippers to their very first title. Who wins the West is the question. Skip said don't start, Stephen A., but I have to. Who wins the West?
I got to tell you something. First of all, San Antonio is the most experienced team, and obviously the way that they lost last year, you would think that they're highly motivated, which they are. They're exceptionally well coached. They have veterans. I'm not picking them because I think when you have that kind of chance and you've come so close and you're this old, they know how to play together. They're very, very experienced, et cetera, et cetera. I just think that that was their moment. I could be wrong. We'll see what happens, but that's what I'm leaning towards. Oklahoma City, for some reason, I've got to see Russell Westbrook right, and even then, without James Harden, that third wheel, now you lost Kevin Martin in Minnesota. Jeremy Lamb, I think, will be a big-time player, scorer in the years to come. I'm not sure he's ready yet, though. That brings me to the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, obviously, there's going to be Houston. There's going to be Golden State. Golden State is a sleeper of mine because they've got the best perimeter shooting in the game. But I got to tell you something right now. I think the acquisition of Doc Rivers changes everything for the Los Angeles Clippers. Chris Paul is just a superstar point guard. Jamal Crawford can score lights out from anywhere. I think the insults that Blake Griffin has had to absorb in the offseason about guys like Zach Randolph and others challenging him and him backing down, I think all of that changes. I think Doc Rivers will generate a level of excitement and tenacity inside of him that we have not seen. I think his game will elevate. But more importantly than that, I think that Doc Rivers will have an effect on DeAndre Jordan. Certainly you can't shoot much worse from the free throw line. But outside of that, you've got to figure out a way to have him on the court in the fourth quarter, Skip, because his athleticism is off the charts. He can block shots, and he does have the capability to rebound if he's focused on that. And I think Doc Rivers could get him that way by simply making sure he understands we need you in the fourth quarter. So the combination of those elements, along with key acquisitions in the offseason, J.J. Redick and Jared Dudley, who are respectable defenders, but more importantly, more reliable shooters from beyond the arc, especially in the form of J.J. Redick, I think spreads the floor, gives Chris Paul more room to operate along with that of Blake Griffin. And again, the exceptional coaching of a Doc Rivers, I think will be enough to propel the Los Angeles Clippers to the NBA Finals this year.
I agree with one statement you just made, and it concerned Doc Rivers. I'm going to give you this much, Stephen A. Smith. Doc Rivers is the X factor in the West this year. He might be the unsung MVP before it's all over. The question to me about the pick you just made, can Doc Rivers alone, his presence, his teaching, just his willpower, can he elevate that tandem you spoke of, Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, into an NBA Finals caliber tandem in the front court for the Clippers? My answer right now is no. I don't believe it. I do believe, and I got a quick prediction here, that Doc will pull you aside sometime, I don't know, March or April, and say, Stephen A., I'm doing all I can do with those two, and it's just not enough. That's my gut feeling. That's my prediction about the Clippers. I love what Doc said the other day. He said, and he blurted out the quote for all to hear, including his players, this is an extremely talented basketball team. For all the reasons you just said, it is. I can make a case it's the most talented team on paper in the West. I love this roster, but I don't love those two big guys because I just don't think they're good enough to get this team to the finals. Now, you mentioned Oklahoma City. The loss of Kevin Martin is a huge loss to me because I'm not sure there's going to be that complementary weak side shooter to take some of the heat off those two guys. And I'm not sure if Russell Westbrook's knee will bother him or plague him going forward through the rest of the season. I'm impressed with the Rockets. I'm still not sold enough on Dwight's presence there to put them over the top. So, you know where that leaves me. I got to tell you, from my heart, I'm not exaggerating, I'm not playing to the camera here. I like my Spurs right now even more than I did 1 year ago today. And I love the fact that none of them would let go of Game 6. That's all they talked about all offseason and all the way through camp. Game 6. I told you I'll never get over it, and I don't think they will either unless they rectify Game 6 in June. And I think they got a shot. And I'm going to pick them again to win the West. As you said, the most experienced team. And let me elaborate. Tim Duncan is now in even better shape than he was a year ago. I trust him. I no longer count on Manu. By the way, Tim's 37. I no longer count on Manu, as we saw in the finals. He lost his wheels a little bit there in 6 and 7, missed a couple of key shots. But Manu, for the first time in a long time, did not play any off-season tournament basketball. Which brings me to Tony Parker and Boris Diaw. Together, they helped France win the European Championship, which is no small thing, and they are going to elevate their games this year. You know what I think of the rest of this team. It's still, Kawhi Leonard is an emerging star. Danny Green had a sensational preseason. And now I'm to the statement that you made earlier that offended me like none you've made in a long time. Wow. You called Mike Dunleavy an upgrade in Chicago over Marco Bellinelli, who I consider the key addition to the San Antonio Spurs. I think he's going to change their rotation as a guy who can step in for Manu. This is a big shot taker and big shot maker who learned to play some defense from Thibodeau in Chicago. He's a Euro star who fits on a Eurocentric team, and you better watch out for Marco Bellinelli this year being a difference maker for the Spurs. Yes, Mike Dunleavy. You can have your Mike Dunleavy, and I'll raise you Marco Bellinelli.
Are you going to let me speak with that grapefruit shirt of yours? Could you wait? Could you wait? Listen up. All right. First of all, a couple of things. Number one, I respect your position on the San Antonio Spurs. I'm not knocking it. I get where you're coming from. I also think you have to take into account a year later on Tim Duncan's birth certificate. The fact that Manu Ginobili, you're showing faith in him by giving him a 2-year extension at about $14.5 million. Skip, I respect the heck out of Manu Ginobili, but he just looked like he lost it, okay? Tony Parker, not the first, for the second year in a row, disappeared at pivotal moments. We know what a stud he is. We know what he can do, but inexplicably, he disappeared. Even you pointed that out. Okay, had a lot to do with LeBron James defending him, no doubt. But that's a point. Danny Green's got to work on his ball handling. I think Kawhi Leonard is a stud, no doubt. Marco Bellinelli could play. But what did Steven Jackson come on our show during the finals and talked about? He wasn't willing to concede that somebody was better than him. He left it at that. One of the knocks against the great Greg Popovich, who I profoundly respect and don't even like to question, because I think he's above reproach as far as I'm concerned. I just love the man, and I respect the heck out of him as a coach. We have to contemplate the fact that he has so much affection for a Manu Ginobili that sometimes that might get in the way of what he would deem to be the right decision, because he believes in this guy so much, because the guy came to his aid on so many occasions in the past. So to me, all of those roadblocks are the kind of things I think potentially get in the way of San Antonio. Won't stop them from having the best record, won't stop them from having the top seed, won't stop them from challenging, but I think something gets in the way. I look at Oklahoma City. We don't need to discuss that. I believe in Kevin Durant. He's a stud. I believe if Russell Westbrook is healthy, they'll be in the mix. They'd beat San Antonio as far as I'm concerned, because they're just that legit. But I don't know if that's enough for them to win it all. When I look at Houston, I love the fact that you don't just have Dwight Howard. You don't just have an emerging superstar in James Harden. I love Omar Syk. I love the combination of him and Dwight Howard. I love Chandler Parsons. I'm a believer now. This dude has elevated his game. Who I don't believe in is Jeremy Lin. I believe Jeremy Lin can play and he belongs in this league. But I believe his ideal scenario is as a scorer as opposed to a facilitator. And with this team, you've got to facilitate. You didn't pay Dwight Howard $88 million to continue continue to allow him to shoot 11 times a game. He needs more shot opportunities, and somebody's going to have to give up the rock, and that's going to have to fall on the shoulders of Jeremy Lin to do that, which brings me to Golden State. Skip Bayless, I got news for you. And I haven't spoken to Mark Jackson about this, but I will. I would have picked Golden State as my sleeper to represent the West in the NBA Finals if it wasn't for one thing and one thing only, and that's based on a conversation because he reminded me of it yesterday when I ran into him, the great Sam Smith, NBA aficionado, wrote for Chicago for years. Nobody, including myself, the man has forgotten more basketball than I know. He's just a basketball encyclopedia. He's phenomenal. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is this. Sam Smith reminded me, you're the Golden State Warriors. What on earth did you do going out signing Andrew Bogut to the 3-year extension for about anywhere from $36 to $43 million, depending on incentives? Why would you do that when this man has shown a propensity to get paid and then be lackadaisical? You had him entering a contract year. What you don't do is you use this year to make him prove himself. I would have had more faith in Golden State had they not signed Andrew Bogut to that contract extension. But because they did, all of these things get in the way of me putting those teams over the Clippers, because the Clippers, dare I say, with Doc Rivers, appear to have more stability than anybody outside of San Antonio. And that's why I'm rolling with the Clippers right now.
Okay, I want to get you on record. Is San Antonio even a contender? Where do you rank San Antonio? 5th or 6th in the West?
I think San Antonio could easily be number 2 in the West. I just think somebody is going to knock them off when it's time. I think they'll be there, but somebody's going to knock them off when it's time, and I think it'll be the Clippers as opposed to Oklahoma City.
Well, Ray Allen knocked them off when it was time last year with a miraculous three-pointer. That's what it took to stop my Spurs.
Vegas says OKC's favored to win the West, followed by your Spurs. Doc Rivers